All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay. Everyone is here for a particular reason. You're here because you started in real estate or you want to get started in real estate. You have had your challenges if you've been in real estate for any point of time. And if you're just starting out, I will tell you, it is not easy. None of it is easy. Anyone who tells you it is easy, they're lying to you. Honestly, they're lying to you. It's not easy. Anything you do in real estate, it's not easy. Even losing money is not easy. It's easier than the other parts, but it's still not easy. Okay, so I will relate part of my story. If that doesn't scare you enough, okay, you'll hear maybe from people who are brave enough to go and share afterwards as well. Okay, so first of all, who here has benefited from someone else in the club helping you out? Just kind of raise your hands. Okay, yeah, about half the group. Okay, the other half, you look around to see who raised their hands, talk to those people. They can relate their experiences if later on they don't come up after all. All right, I was counting on a larger group to be able to share stuff. I think maybe that's what scared people away, that I was going to have people come up and share their experiences. So I might be the only one. Okay, so hopefully I will make it worthwhile for you to understand the kind of challenges that I overcame in my own personal life in getting to this point. And there is no presentation because I was thinking to myself, if I actually documented this stuff, it would probably cause me more trauma than just even talking about it. Because now I can, wow, all that stuff happened. Instead of me just randomly trying to recall stuff that I've been trying to forget all these years, I'm now trying to actively bring it out in the open and talk about it and actually document it too. Then I would be looking up that suicide hotline number and say, you know, that this is it, you know, that was just too much. Okay, so earlier, even just before this presentation, I was asked, okay, how did I get into real estate? What brought me into real estate? At what age did I start thinking about real estate? And to be honest, that was back in my high school days, which, as you can tell, you know, was quite some time ago. Okay, so high school days, and then going through everything that I came up to. So while I've made progress in all that time, I could have made more progress if I lived that perfect world scenario. And who do you know lives that perfect world scenario? Only your Facebook friends, right? They're the ones who are documenting, here's this great dinner that I went to, here's this great vacation I'm on, here's this great house that I'm living in, here's this great car I just bought, things like that. Those are the ones who are doing that perfect world scenario, which we all know is not real. Okay, at least I hope you know that. If not now, you should know it's not real. Okay. So the reality is, even though I thought about it very early on, it did not happen that way. Life got in the way. And not just the usual things that you think about life. Okay, so typical things that you think life got in the way, getting a good education, getting a great education, then getting a great job, then getting into a great relationship, and then in the relationship, now you have a family, now you have additional obligations, now you continue climbing up that either corporate ladder or whatever it is kind of ladder that you're on. Okay, those are the typical things that people think deter them from doing things like real estate. Okay, I'm telling you that is part of the easy part, but it's also part of your barriers too. Okay, so from high school on, I thought I was going to do something in real estate. Got into college, I didn't choose anything in real estate in college because I couldn't find anything in real estate in college. So I went into IT. I'm old enough to remember Star Trek when it was live on TV for the first time, not reruns. Okay? Most of you guys probably saw Star Trek as reruns. I was there when it first started. Okay? So I saw computers and I saw things that computers were doing. So I thought, oh, that would be cool to go ahead and do. Got into college. Computers in college were nothing like what you saw in Star Trek. Not even close. But I spent a lot of time doing that anyway. And eventually, I got into IT as a career. Did quite decently, I kind of think. 40 plus years. Worked for not one, but two Fortune 500 companies before they were Fortune 500 companies. Okay. At one point, making in one part year over $250,000, in one almost full year over $350,000. That's 2 years. Okay. But when I tell you what led up to those 2 years, it will turn your hair white like this, okay? So, in college, when I was a junior, I had my first exposure to the real life of real estate, not in a positive sense. What does that mean? My family lost their house in a foreclosure. I was a junior in school. Finally, I was getting good grades, okay? So yes, I'm Asian. I'm not one of those Asians, straight A's. I'm not one of those, okay? Finally, I was getting great grades, actually, okay? And we lost our house. Why? Because my father was a gambler, okay? We lost our house, I think, being past due over the grand sum of about $3,500. Let that sink in for a moment. $3,500. That is, for some of you, a monthly house payment right now, or pretty close to it. Back in those days, I think the monthly payment, the mortgage payment, was around $350. So he was like 10 months behind. So we lost our house to foreclosure, okay? I know this because I came home one day and there's this tape across our front door. Do not enter by order of marshals or something like that. Okay. I had absolutely no idea what was happening at that point. That was my first taste of real estate. Okay. Up until then, I always thought that real estate was one of those things that, oh yeah, you would be a landlord and you would have tenants and they would pay their rent and things like that. Okay. But I had no real experience in real estate up until then. And when that happened, that hit me full force. So my father worked at a restaurant industry. He has always been in the restaurant industry. My mother was a seamstress. A seamstress is one of those people who sews clothes. One of those people that you hear of working like a sweatshop, where doing little piecework, you might get 5 cents, 3 cents, 10 cents. If it was higher paying, maybe 15 cents per piece. Okay, so they did not get paid minimum wage. They got paid by the amount of work they actually accomplished. So that basically meant working from day going into the night in order to go ahead and make her income. My father, working in a restaurant essentially as wait staff, then you're dependent upon tips. And tips, even right now, is not all that great, depending on the kind of restaurant you're working in. So we lost our house, and we had no one in our immediate group, family and friends, who knew how to take care of a foreclosure. And then the house actually was sold. Okay? So we're still living in the house. It had gone through foreclosure. We get a knock on the door, open the door, and the guy who was knocking on the door was surprised that someone was actually living in there. I said, yeah, we still live here. We weren't able to stop the foreclosure. And he says, yeah, I know, because I'm the one who bought the house. Okay? So eventually, we started renting the house from him. So what was our house, now we were renting from him. Okay? I still remember his name, but I won't mention it. And I remember how little the house sold for, but that's not important, only that we lost the house just because we could not get those payments done, we could not stop the foreclosure, not because it technically couldn't be stopped, but because we and everyone that we knew did not know how to do that. Okay, so one of the first things that I learned about real estate is that I will learn how to stop a foreclosure. Or if I can't stop it, I will build out a network of people who will help me be able to stop a foreclosure. And if I'm able to find out of anyone in my circle who is going through a foreclosure, I can help them stop that foreclosure, either myself or through my network. Okay? That was a really, really, really hard lesson to learn. Okay? I vowed I would never put myself in that kind of position ever. Then what? Life continued. I dropped out of school, started working full time. Okay, my father had disappeared for a while. We finally found him. Okay, in the meantime, my sister was still going to high school, so she just continued school. I dropped out of school, never finished a degree, because from that point, it was always working, just to go ahead, pay the bills. Okay. Later on, we had a very close family friend, actually kind of like a relative, who loaned us money to be able to buy a house. And we were able to buy a house 1 block away from where we were then living. So every time I even go back to my parents' house now, which is now my house and my sister's house, 1 block away is the house that caused all this additional trauma. And so once in a while, I will drive down that street and look at that house and think of how things were and how they turned out to be, right? Sometimes you have to revisit that to see how you have progressed in your life. Okay, it's sort of a traumatic reminder, because you don't want to necessarily remember things like that, but you have to remind yourself, you have to move on. And when you have moved on, you can be proud that you moved on. And you go back and take a look at it. Yeah, we lost that house, but look at what's happened since then, right? You start counting those successes. So working full-time meant working at McDonald's for full-time and transitioning into full-time at McDonald's, making the grand total of $865 a month. Okay? So junior in college, now college dropout, now working full-time at McDonald's. Okay? So how many people would want to go ahead and work at McDonald's full-time for the rest of their lives? Probably not many, okay? Even though I actually learned a lot from that experience, I kind of figured at that point, 7.5 years working for McDonald's was probably enough. So during that time, and maybe I need to describe that experience as well. So working at full-time at McDonald's, basically as a assistant manager, basically meant you have 7-day availability. You don't have limited availability. So if you have limited availability, number one, your salary wouldn't be that high, right? And you would not be in that kind of position. So you had to literally have 24/7 availability. So there were nights that there were nights that I closed, mornings that I opened. So opened basically means being at the store 4 o'clock in the morning. Closing basically means being there 1 o'clock, maybe even 2 o'clock in the evening. There are times when I closed and then opened the next day. Okay, and for all that extra time that I put in, I don't get paid for it, or I didn't get paid for it then. So working at McDonald's was minimum 50 to 60 hours a week, still getting $865 a month, okay, to be able to keep that job, to be able to get things moving in order to go ahead and make sure things were running properly, okay. So I knew that was not a long-term option. So I continued my computer studies by enrolling in what they call a trade school or technical school. I don't know if they're still around these days, but I don't think that company is around anymore. But I had an aptitude for doing computer programming, and so I tested for that, and it proved that I still could, so I enrolled for their evening classes. So I then changed my schedule to where I would open during the week, and I would go to school in the evening. Going to school basically meant being there by, say, 5 to 5:30 till 11 o'clock at night. Okay, so imagine me being at the store 4 o'clock in the morning. Okay, my shift technically ended at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay, now where I worked, if you know where Cal State Los Angeles is, that McDonald's right off the freeway, that's the store that I worked at. Okay, from there, my house was east in Rosemead. Okay, so still San Gabriel Valley. Okay, not far away, but my school was out in the Wilshire district. So basically past downtown LA, now going into West LA. All right, so to be there at 5 o'clock, I really had to leave by no later than 3:30, drive straight there. Okay, and if you've worked in a restaurant before, you'll understand this, because when you've worked in the kitchen and you smell like that kitchen and you walk in a place that is not that kitchen, people can tell. Okay, and so I hardly had enough time to wash up. I couldn't change my clothes or anything like that, not enough time to wash up. And so